Hello and welcome to Technologyist in New York. My guest today is Martha Williams. She's a writer, director, and culturalist living and working in New York City. Welcome to the channel, Martha Williams. I know you as a writer, director, and you call yourself a culturalist. Can you explain a little bit what's the difference between a writer, director, and a culturalist? Are you trying to change culture, or are you trying to influence culture, or what is your take on it?
I moved around a lot growing up, and I was super aware from a very early age that it's all made up. And that happens on the individual level, and it also happens on the cultural level. All my work, whether it does it directly or not, I'm really interested in sort of breaking down our identities as cultures and as people and questioning that, and then kind of relating my personal experience to being inside of a cultural fabric that's really pinning us down to a certain experience, especially on the topics that are at hand in my work right now, which are online dating, love, technology, and the effects of technology on relationships and love and connection. And then with my TV show, those themes are about power and feminism, and the changing face of that, and the changing face of the patriarchy.
You collaborated a lot with Alquran Flash. Where did you meet Elke, and how do you bring your own thoughts into her work?
Yeah, Elke and I met while performing in Noémie Lafrance's Descent. Back in 2001. Elke has a really incredible observation of the world that then comes out in this really sort of dark humor, sarcastic humor. And she's also got an incredible sensitivity and an incredibly intuitive poetic process, which I adore. We actually didn't collaborate while we were both dancers and choreographers. That actually happened after I went into film. She wanted to apply to this residency in Mexico, and she asked me if I wanted to come and collaborate with her. And I went hesitantly into this collaboration, but what I found was an incredible collaboration, actually. So as a former choreographer, and still really a choreographer, I was able to kind of see what she was doing and help her to edit. And as a director, I was able to bring out an outside eye to give the piece a sort of a structure. We got the residency and we weren't sure what we were going to do. And we were upstate together and sitting in the car waiting for someone. And I'm like, I'm going to get up and go to this estate sale across the street. And I go across the street and there's this box of old toy horses. And the guy at the estate sale's like, they're yours. You can just take them. So he gave them to me for free. I brought them back to the car, and Elke's like, well, I guess we know what our piece is about. So we had a real, it was a kind of a magical process in that way. We let the world and our discovery really guide the process, and that was incredibly fun.
I always see you as an avant-gardist. I worked with the avant-garde my whole life. I'm not interested in anything but avant-garde. So that's why I'm interested in your work, in Elke's work. And have you been exposed to avant-garde as a kid, as a young person?
I have always been an incredibly intuitive and physical, poetic type of person. I wrote poetry very young. I used to make dances at a very young age. And definitely dance is avant-garde. I mean, that's just how it is, unless you're doing like Broadway musicals or something like that, which is very musical and structured. And I think going into the film industry, moving towards film, I was really interested in understanding that world and making my work be able to live in the world more clearly and to a wider audience, because I am really interested in making a difference and in having a really big voice. When I was making dance, I made the dance purely from this kind of bubbling up from the ground place. If you trust the process will deliver. I always think of dance and choreography as musical structure, which is incredibly intuitive. Every project is a little bit different, and I think that Run for Your Life was definitely an experiment for me.
So at some point you went back to schools. Why did you decide to do it? Did you feel like you needed an additional education in order to tackle the film productions, or was it just like it happened for you?
I didn't go to college for dance. So I didn't have any formal education in that way. I wanted it to not only just be my art, but I wanted it to be my profession. And I felt like I needed an institution in order to learn what the industry is saying.
Can you talk a little bit about the application process? Because people who want to go to film school, especially in New York or in the United States, it's extremely expensive. So if you do not have the backing from home, or if you do not have a scholarship, it's almost impossible to finance. Can you talk a little bit about how you did it, or what the application process was, and what would you recommend young students in that regard?
The application process was really intense, as is anything of high standard, I think, and got into CalArts, which was totally the best fit for me because it is really an art tour school. So it was a really good fit for me because it was a marriage of the two, which is what I was really looking for. And I just got loans. Really, I was lucky enough to get the financing to go into massive debt, essentially. But I felt like it was worth it. Because you're not only getting the education, you're getting the connections.
Yes, it's important to learn the craft, but it's also about the connection you really make. I think this is what you're paying for. You're paying for the connections, and that the institution or the institute basically brings you in touch with other important people who will become important in your life. Can you tell me a little bit, who did you meet and what did it do for you?
I still call people from grad school to talk about my projects, to talk through problems. We do it. It's a mutual thing where we're always sort of like checking in with each other, because as directors, it's so important to have those colleagues to bounce ideas off and challenges, because there's so much challenge that goes with production and writing, and it's frustrating and it takes a really long time. And so that base is so huge. Like, we went through something really massive together. I think anytime you share that kind of experience, that really sticks with you. It's an art school, so people are really respected from there, and there's a lot of great art that's being made from that place, because it's an incredibly disorganized place, but it's a place that puts the art first. Pixar was pretty much started by CalArts people. There's always a CalArts person like winning an Oscar, and it's usually for doing really, edgy work. And I could probably be a better producer in terms of like making those connections really help me. But it's, there's this, I find as a director and a filmmaker, there's this real balance between the business and the art.
Here in New York, you're known for the Bughouse, right? You've been doing the Bughouse for quite some time. How many years have you been producing that event?
I'm not doing it anymore, but through holding these events, I really understood what made a good story. And really what's at the heart of a good story is like a really unique voice.
I'm like 6'4", pretty young. Definitely he's thinking I'm stupid. I'm thinking he's a puff of smoke.
That was an incredible awakening for me, because I don't think I really understood my own voice and that it was unique and valuable at all. The whole process of me coming up as an artist has been about knowing that I'm valuable. And I think that so many artists deal with that, especially women who are unfortunately told to take the back seat and don't want to be too loud or too disruptive or too anything. And so becomes this kind of really unconscious timidness that happens. And this process of my life has been about knowing that what I have to say is something, and it's unique just because.
I mean, that's what you learn in film school. It's about the story. I mean, the craft is important. You need to execute. But you always can hire people who do that for you. I mean, there's enough craft people who really know how to, light a scene or shoot a scene and do all that stuff. So let's talk a little bit about the latest production. Let's talk about the Run for Your Life. It's a mini-series. It's like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, roughly, right? So this is about the attention span people have these days. And tell me how that came about. When did you have the idea about doing it, and how is it working out for you?
I was in school for grad school. I graduated. I came back to New York. I was just gone through a breakup and I had started online dating. Online dating was relatively new to me as well. And so I'd had a lot of bad experiences, which is what I think a lot of people have when they first start online dating. I was sort of treating men like disposable diapers because there are so many dates you could go on. There's this sense of a dating surplus. So I wasn't really taking care of myself or other people. I think because of technology, because you feel like there's so many guys and so many people, whatever your flavor is, it can be overwhelming.
Can it become an addiction?
Yeah, I know people who go on, like 3 dates a day, always looking for the better person.
I really liked your profile on the app. You seem to really know what you want.
Well, I am a CEO.
Oh, for some reason I thought you said that you freelanced.
I do freelance. I'm a freelance CEO.
Right.
It's very different than when there wasn't online dating because you couldn't necessarily do that.
It can also be brutal. I've seen shit that would make you crap your baby boy diaper.
Oh.
So I started really toying with the idea of doing something around dating, and the fact that all these dates made me so agitated that I really kind of wanted to just run out of there. And then the word "run for your life" came, and that's kind of where I sort of built the series around that title. In frustration, I'm talking with my very dear friend Rachel, and I was like, I have to do something and I want to write this thing. Will you just help me get started? So we got started together by playing with how we would write, like what's the structure, because that's a huge part of writing any series is like, what's the structure? So we played with a couple of different ways, and we ended up kind of going into this like improv writing sessions where we would just have a prompt and then we'd write and then all this ridiculous stuff would come out.
Why are you crying, you little bitch?
Because you sold my dead cat!
It was worth 15 grand!
You're funny.
Because it was really free writing, and it really works because dating is so ridiculous. It's a form of writing that really worked.
Not everything in life is for sale, okay?
You better man up, son.
You better have your vocal cords removed. That's what I think. I'm sorry for saying that, but it's true. I'm not sorry. Just here.
What a thing to say to a lady.
And I also needed something that would be really easy to make. Not that it was really easy to make, but it wasn't a huge thing.
You needed to find the money, of course, and crowdsourcing is one way, and you were successful. So tell a little bit about the crowdfunding process.
Crowdfunding is it's a little bit like getting the blood sucked out of you for like about a month. Make sure that you have commitments from backers up front and that they know very clearly to donate the moment you open the campaign. Apparently, with algorithms of Kickstarter and crowdfunding, is you need to have a third of the money within the first week. If you have a third of the money in the first week, you're pretty much going to make your goal. But if you don't, it's very hard to climb up that hill. And that just didn't happen. So I just didn't quite understand what it meant and what it would look like to get those commitments. What I did here was make a really nice video, and I decided to do the whole video while running, since it's called Run for Your Life. And I think that was really great. A lot of people really respond to the video and think it's really funny. First week, I don't know, maybe I raised $1,000, $2,000. It was like I hit a plateau, and I was supposed to raise, 20,000. I should have had, about 6,000 in the first week. So I was just a mess. I had a producer on board who then last minute had to back out for some other producing job. So I put out a call for a producer because I knew I couldn't do it alone. And I found this woman, Ashley George. I was really immediately smitten by her. She really was positive and had a very exuberant vibe. And that was really important to really find that energy to finish this campaign. So she really came on gangbusters, and we had an incredible sort of push And then realized what I needed to do to find my executive producer. So I talked to a very dear old friend of mine, Tracy Toon Spencer, about coming on as an executive producer, and she put in $5,000. Because it's sort of this psychology game where if the project doesn't have enough money already there, some people don't give because people want to give to a winning horse. So that was sort of the process. And then I raised another $6,000 for the post-production process through a friend who really offered it up to me. It was really a kind of magical ending because I had raised the money for the production and I had these like very tiny little budgets for post-production, which we spent all that money. So there was like no more money left, right? I went over budget. That's why you go to your old friends who know and believe in you. Then hopefully for this next round, I can go to financiers and say, hey, what about funding this project? So we're going to our first festival in 2 weeks. And so there, hopefully we'll be meeting some people. I'm going with my co-writer, Rachel Werble, and we can maybe make some connections that will help us move on to that next step. So the other thing that we're doing is developing a half-hour version of the show that we can hopefully pitch around. So I'm writing that pilot as we speak.
So that festival, the Pilot Light TV Film Festival, that's in Manchester, right? When you're leaving, what's the plan?
I'm heading out May 2nd. The festival is May 3rd to the 6th. There's a day of panels. They're actually showing all 4 episodes, which is super exciting. It's a pretty cool festival, I think. It says, watch TV together, I think is what the sort of slogan is. So we'll see who will be there. We're going to get a list of those folks, those industry folks at some point soon.
So what are you bringing with you in order to network there?
I'm in the process of making little cards as we speak. We're also doing little intro videos. So I'm finishing up an intro video that will be showing before the series pops up on the screen.
Yeah, I think the festival is probably a really good opportunity to make contacts for future productions, especially an international festival like that. And you have something to show. It's a great production. I mean, I watched all the shows. They're very professionally made. Have you considered approaching production companies or TV companies in the United States, or do you try to do it just on your own feet?
Very happily, it got in front of Comedy Central. So that was exciting. They passed on it. It was too ridiculous. They saw the Freelance CEO episode, which in a way, yeah, it is ridiculous.
Comedy Central looked at your work basically, and they decided it's too quirky for their channel?
Yeah, which is so crazy. But, that's just what they say. Could be 100 reasons. It was also, there are a lot of dating shows that come across their desk. But the fact that they wanted to see it was a huge accomplishment.
Being an independent artist like you in New York City is extremely challenging, isn't it? What would you tell people who want to come and live and work in New York today how to approach that?
I did have this very intense job with neuroleadership for about 3 years, and from 7:30 to 9:30 I would write every day. And then I would have a big job that was like 8 to 10 hours a day, and it was like full on the whole time. So, but I saved enough money and I have very low expenses, and I think that's really important to find a way to live cheaply. That is like the number one thing that I've always done. And any artist that I know who's still at it usually has a way of living cheaply, because you can make money while you're making film. That this can happen, especially if you throw yourself into that. But what happens is you throw yourself into that and then you lose your art. So it's really is a balance, One of my goals is to be just independent, to be able to make work, because that's what I'm here to do.
But you just said, I think this is very important, that the discipline of getting up 7:30 in the morning and sitting down there and writing for 2 hours, that's really important. So you really need to work hard in order to achieve your dreams.
Yeah, I think that I was blessed with the gift of discipline. I think that it runs in my family. My father was Marine. I was a professional athlete for a while. But I think there are lots of ways in. There are like lazy artists who can make it. That's just their process. I think like I said, art is life. So whatever it is that you bring to the table is how you bring it and you approach it. I don't suggest anybody changing that, because that's part of you, and that's how that reflects in your work.
What's your approach to social media? What do you see the benefit in social media in regards to publishing your work?
Well, obviously, social media is a player now in our lives and important in terms of getting your work out there. And I'm absolutely playing that game. And then you make the work for the web. It changes the way that you make the work because people have very short attention spans. Technology has changed everything, and it's exciting because it's a lot more accessible. Being a filmmaker is a much more accessible feat at this point. But, you know, the reason I actually moved into film from dance was because the camera helps you go out into the world. And for me, the black box was never enough. That was partially why I went into video, is because I realized when I saw this dance film and dawned on me that that's how my mind works. Like, that's what I see when I make dances. I see images. And I think my last piece, Packageless, actually really super imagistic and super cinematic. And I love the storyboarding. I love the camera. I love the dance of the camera with the subject. And I find that movement inside of a frame and of the director of photography is hugely important.
So thanks again for coming on. It was a great conversation. And if there's a new project you're doing, we'll have you back. I'm happy to talk about new things, new ideas. And when you come back from Manchester, maybe you want to come on for a short report, like a little 15-minute piece, and tell me how it went. Thank you, Martha Williams, for being on the channel today. We wish you all the best for your future artworks and productions. And if you guys want to hear more about Martha and other local artists, please subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell so we can send you notifications when we have a new video. Thank you for watching Technology Artist.